Your worship, we're good to go for 7 p.m. We're live now.
If I could get the remainder of council to come on screen, we can start things right off at 7 o'clock. With that, welcome at 7 o'clock now. So welcome everyone. Welcome to this, the 58th session of council on Monday, November the 22nd. It is now 7 p.m. I welcome everyone. This is a virtual meeting, so I remind everyone that even though it is a virtual meeting, the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, the council's rules of procedures, code of conduct, and other pertinent legislation apply as if this were an in-person meeting. As it is an in-person meeting or a virtual meeting, if any member of council's connection to the internet or to this meeting is lost or disrupted, we will pause for a few minutes to allow that member to connect. And if they cannot connect within a few minutes, assuming we still have quorum, we will continue the meeting out anyways. With that, as I say, the meeting has been called to order. Right? There was no closed session today, okay? So we shall move into the playing of the national anthem. I will ask everyone to turn off their screens while the clerk prepares that. Welcome. We acknowledge that we are being hosted on the ancestral lands of the Haudenosaunee, Mississauga, and Omami-Winini peoples. We acknowledge and welcome the presence of all Indigenous peoples, including the Métis, Inuit, and other First Nations from across this vast land who also makes this place home. The lands we are on today are recognized in the Two-Row Wampum Dish with One Spoon Treaty, Treaty 27, and the Crawford Purchase. Once again, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And just a housekeeping item, you'll note that we have an open forum and then 2 public meetings. And I do note that we have quite a few attendees this evening. I'm assuming those are for the public meetings. So I would remind people that the first section is the open forum, where we invite people we set aside the first 15 minutes for the open forum, and any individual may address council to voice an opinion on subjects of municipal concern, excluding matters subject to the public meeting, which is the second piece. And notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act and in accordance with the Ontario's Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, all information provided for or at our open forum, public meetings, or other public process are considered part of the public record. Loyalist Township meetings are being held virtually, and anyone wishing to speak in this open forum is asked to contact the township clerk to register in advance to make those arrangements. Right. With that, I will ask if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in the open forum, not with regard to the items coming shortly within the public meetings. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone that pre-registered?
No, I don't believe we did, Your Worship. I see one hand up from Jean Hudassen. I'm just not sure whether they wish to speak. So I'll just allow her to, oops, hold on here.
If Ms. Hudassen wishes, there she is. Welcome, Ms. Hudassen. Can you hear me? Welcome, Ms. Hudassen. If you may be able to hear me, but you're currently muted, so we can't hear you. If you can unmute. And I see Joe and Jean Hudassen. Might be the same family. Hi, Joe. Hi, Jean. If you can hear me and you can unmute, you are welcome to speak to the open forum. We can see your hands, but we can't hear you at this point. And now we have Joe Hudassen, also muted. Madam Clerk, is there something we can do to help them unmute?
I've asked, all I can do is ask for them to unmute. I've allowed them to speak.
We appear to be having some technical glitch. I'm sure the Hudassens are wishing to speak, right? But at this point we can't hear them. Again, I don't know if they can hear me at this point. Right?
If they would like to email, I can try and set them up to see what the issue is. If they'd like to email info@loyalist.ca, we can try and get them working.
Okay, and again, I'm not sure if Mr. and Mrs. Hudassen were able to hear that message. Perhaps if we could get them to take down their raised hand, it would indicate that they're hearing us. And Mr. and Mrs. Hudassen have taken down their raised hand, which means I believe they are here and present and wishing to speak, but unable to unmute. With that, if they're now turning off their screens, they're disconnecting. So I'm going to have to assume that they're going to connect to the clerk through the info@loyalist.ca. Okay. And I do see another hand here for Mr. Peter Field. If he'd like to come on, perhaps the Hudassens will be able to arrange their connection, and we'll come to them secondly. Would Mr. Peter Field like to come forward? Mr. Field, can you hear us?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
We can hear you. Thank you. For the record, can I get you to state your name and address, please?
Peter Field, 1 Teagan Court.
Welcome,
Odessa,
sir.
Ontario.
Yep. Thank you. Welcome, sir. I'd like to say good to see you again, but can't see you right this moment. But if you have something to bring to council, we would be
Well,
happy
I'm
to
not
listen.
sure. When the clerk said that there was no advanced people to speak, I thought we were supposed to be on the agenda tonight as the Agricultural Society.
Under delegations, we do have Ms. Kimberley representing the Odessa Agricultural Society.
Yes,
With
Florence is
Greg.
here with me. Okay, that's fine. We can wait till then.
Okay, that is a formal delegation, so she will be able to speak at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And in the meantime, has Ms. Hudason or Mr. Hudason been able to connect? I can see Gene Hudason's connecting. If you're able to take it off mute, we would be glad to hear what you've got to say. Unless we can find another way to do this, I don't think we're going to be able to hear Mr. and Mrs. Hudason's comments this evening. Trying to give them a little more time to connect or to figure out how to unmute. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak during the open forum, not regarding the items under the public meetings? I'm seeing no other hands. And Ms. Hudason. Unfortunately, I can't seem to connect with Mr. and Mrs. Hudason right now. And hopefully they will be able to connect with us and provide that information, whatever they wish to bring forward through the clerk. Madam Clerk?
We are monitoring the info email, so we'll just, if we can connect, we will try and get them on.
Thank you. If they are able to reconnect, at that time, I will ask council if, depending on where we are in the council meeting, if they will allow that to suspend the rules of procedure to allow them to present, because they have made an effort to present this evening. With that, we will move forward. If there's no one else for the open forum, I'm seeing no others. Yeah. Oh, and we are moving into the public meetings. Okay. The first public meeting is with regard to 1315 Main Street, Odessa from NRK Development. Public meeting is being held in accordance with the provisions of section 1715, 3412, and 5120 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 to consider an amendment to the Loyalist Township official plan, amendment to the comprehensive zoning bylaw 2001-38 as amended, and a plan of subdivision. And proposed subdivision seeks approval for a draft plan of subdivision consisting of three. I'm going to skip over that part. You can all read that. Right. Council shall hear in person or by his or her counsel, solicitor, or agent any person who claims to be affected by this application. Right. I will first turn to the director. Does the director, does the staff have anything to add to the report that we have before us at this time?
Through you, Your Worship, there's nothing to add to the report, no, but I believe the applicant's consultant is presenting tonight. So if your worship agrees, it probably should be the next presentation.
Absolutely. The applicant's consultant for this is Mr. Cunningham? I don't know. Ms. Tucker? Is the applicant or the applicant's consultant available to speak to us? Oh, and we have Ms. Tucker.
Yes.
Good evening, Council, Mayor and Council. My name is Tracy Tucker. I'm with IBI Group, and I'm going to present the application before you for 315 Main Street. I just need to share my screen.
Just go ahead.
Right. So we're here today about the proposed residential development at 315 Main Street, Odessa. There we go. So it is located at the corner of County Road 2, Shane Street, and Hensey Street, with frontage on all three streets. Right now, the lands are currently vacant with residential on the the west, south, and vacant looks like farmland and agricultural on the north of the site. So currently the lands have a low density residential designation on them, and the proposal is to move them to a medium density residential designation to permit the development as proposed. So previously, back in 2019, we had submitted an application for draft plan of subdivision, which included medium density townhouses in this area, a public right of way, which would have gone from Hensley Street to Shane Street, and a medium density apartment building. Once we received comments back from staff and feedback from the original public meetings, we have revised the plan, and we've put townhouse units fronting straight onto Hensley and Shane Street. There's 14 townhouses as well as a 22 unit apartment building, which will have frontage on Highway 2 as well as on Shane Street. There will be no access from Highway 2 as it's not permitted at this time. And then there's also a stormwater management pond proposed, which will help with all the runoff or potential runoff from the site, controlling it before it goes out into the existing ditch system. So currently the official plan permits low density residential, which is single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, with a total density of 31 units per hectare. And the medium density permits the low density uses, triplexes, cluster row housing, street fronting townhouses, low rise apartments to a maximum 60 units per hectare with a maximum of 4 stories. And we are proposing to put street fronting townhouses, a low rise apartment, which is 3 stories in height, and a total net density for the entire site of 48.4 units per net hectare, which is basically the lands that are being developed with residential, so doesn't include the lands of the stormwater management pond in that calculation. So originally, this is what was proposed for the site. There was 24 units in the apartment building, and there was 16 units with frontage onto the proposed public road. So we are now proposing a 22 unit apartment building, same footprint, we're just reducing the number of units in it. There's a lot more amenity space. We've provided children's amenity space, and we've also included 14 townhouses, which are, I believe they were approximately 2,100 square feet in size, 2 stories in height. So the proposed apartment building hasn't changed in terms of the looks of it, although this will all be dealt with, the actual details of which will be dealt with through the site plan process in the future once approved. So currently the lands are a residential type 5 zone, which permits the existing permissions permit street fronting townhouses and the low rise apartment dwelling. This doesn't align with the official plan, which doesn't permit these uses in the low density use, but the zoning permits them as of right. So we were proposing to modify the existing zoning bylaw to permit these uses, including some lot area reductions, minor reductions. They're still meeting all the setbacks with exception of the exterior side yard on 1 unit. And the front yards, we've asked for it to be 6 meters, which accommodates a driveway, as well as 4.5 meters to the house. So your garage face is actually pushed back from the front of the house. And then through staff, we were asked to propose an amendment to the maximum lot coverage for the internal units to allow for future sheds to be placed in these rear yards. So we've gone up to 51% there. The corner and end units would still comply with the additional 5% for the sheds. And we've also provided additional rear yard space from what the current bylaw proposes. So because we were requesting amendments to the zoning bylaw, that triggered the official plan amendment. And for the apartment building, we're requesting a reduction of the front yard from 7.5 meters to 6 meters, and parking to be located 1.5 meters from the street line. And this is to capture a pinch point at the northeast corner of the site. Most parking will be outside of the 3 meters, with exception of the 1 pinch point on site. So we have heard some public concerns about flooding, the increases to density, and the traffic that will be generated from this site. The flooding and drainage, we do understand that is an existing ongoing issue in this area due to the bedrock and the lack of storm sewers, so the ditches have been seen to overflow. Our site does have to implement a stormwater management pond, which will address any flooding issues that would have resulted from this proposed development. So we will be containing, and we have to contain pre to post, so we have to contain all flood and all water before it goes back into the municipal ditches to the same extent that it would be today. And we've actually, I believe, made it better because we've increased the size of the pond to allow for additional storage on site in those major events. The increase in density on the site, so as previously noted, the zoning bylaw actually permitted the uses of the medium density and would have permitted the uses as of right. It's a minor increase in density. We're not actually asking for an amendment by going to the medium density. Previously, we had asked for an additional density increase, but we have now reduced the number of units on site, and were allocated previously to have 36 units for servicing, and that's what we have proposed on site now. And the increase in traffic, we have done a traffic study for this site, and it found that the increase in traffic would be not negatively impacting the existing traffic flows in the area. So again, this is our revised plan. So the stormwater management pond is here, and it is approximately 1,200 square meters. And so we have amenity space now across the entire frontage here, as well as each of these townhouses have a significantly large backyard for what a townhouse would normally have. And this is for the proposed draft plan of subdivision. So there's 3 blocks, which would include the 3 townhouses, as well as the block for the apartment building. And there's also a road widening of 3 meters and about 3 meters on both Shane Street and Hensey Street, which is part of why we've asked for the additional setback to 6 meters from 7.5 for the apartment building, because we have given a 3 meter widening. So we are significantly set back. We're still 9 meters from where the road currently is today. And that road widening will likely just be grass in this area. And in the future, if the city or the township does choose to actually widen this road or urbanize this road, there may be sidewalks located within that area, but for now it would just remain as is today. And that's our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tucker. If I could get you to stop sharing your screen for us.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the button to do that. Why is it not? There we go.
There we go. Thank you very much. So thank you for that presentation. And before I go to the public, I will ask council if they have any questions of you at this time. Council, any questions for the consultant for this project? I'm seeing none. Then we'll move to the open part. This is a public meeting. We would ask any attendees who wish to speak to the 315 Main Street, Odessa application to please use the raise hand signal, and the clerk will, in some sequence, invite you in and ask you to speak.
Okay, Mr. Cunningham, I will allow to speak.
Welcome, Mr. Cunningham. If you can hear me, I would ask that you unmute and then give us your full name and address, and then tell us your thoughts.
Doug Cunningham. I live at Country Club Drive in Bath, Ontario, and I'm here regarding the 496 Main Street. That's what I would like to talk about.
Okay, that will be the second public meeting, so I'll ask the clerk to let you back into the waiting area, if you will.
Okay, thanks.
And we'll bring you in at that time. Madam Clerk, are there others here to speak specifically to the 315 Main Street, Odessa application? Let's see, Mr. Hilson. And I see that Bob Hilson has come in. Again, Mr. Hilson, welcome, and we ask that you unmute. I think you have already, and tell us your name and address, and then share your thoughts with us.
Name is Robert Hilson. Address is 151 Manor Road, Bath, Ontario. My question for the presentation person is not with regard to the stormwater management pond. Is, I think, something that was lacking is not necessarily the area of the pond, but the volume of the pond. That's what I would like to have answered.
Okay. Ms. Tucker, are you able to provide that information?
If you give me 1 second, I can pull up the report to get that information.
Hold on for one moment, Mr. Hilson.
That's fine.
Do you have any other questions while Ms. Tucker is pulling that information out?
No, I do not.
Okay. I do note that there are a couple other people that have their hands up. We will get to, I believe it's Mr. Kowalski and Mr. Peacock in a moment, as soon as we've completed with Mr. Hilson. Ms. Tucker, is this
Not
something?
seeing that report in our file. I just need to look. I am still looking for it.
Okay. Again, perhaps you can share that in a few moments if you're still looking for it. And Mr. Hilson, if you have no other questions, I will move forward and ask Ms. Tucker to answer that question in a few moments when she's able to, but that would allow us to move on to the other people who wish to speak to that. Is that all right with you, Mr. Hilson?
Oh, yes, that's fine. In fact, I think it's important for the council to know, not necessarily for me to know.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. With that, I will move on to Madam Clerk. Is it Mr. Kowalski that's next?
Yes.
Welcome, Mr. Kowalski.
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
We can, if I get you to state your full name and address, and then tell us your thoughts on this project.
Gord Kowalski, 398 Shane Street, Odessa. Okay. I have a few comments. The first one I want to start out with is the notice of the public meeting, this one here. I noticed on the township website there that the Bath meetings are all published on the township website, and this meeting, you know, it just isn't published, and it kind of, you know, gives Bath an enhanced notice, and you know, more public participation might be held if this was published along with the other meetings. So that's one thing. One of my comments. Did you
And I do understand. I'm not sure that I would like our staff to comment on the publication and the notifications. But if you have another question, we'll take that, and then I'll go to staff.
Well, I'm sure that regulations are met on this, except by not having this meeting publicized on the website there, you don't get the participation. So that's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
My next question is the allocation of sewer. Originally, when this plan started out, that was 2007, that they allocated 23 units of sewer. And there's a plan of a subdivision that went through. Well, it didn't go through, it got struck down, and then it went to appeal. And the appeal was withdrawn in 2012. So for 4 years till 2016, there must have been another extension in there. And then there wasn't a lot. There was an allocation to another 13 units to make it 36. So we've had 218 an extension, 219 an extension. Now we're coming to another extension. How many extensions are we going to have, and what's that going to do to set precedents for other developments? Is my question.
Okay. With that, I will go to our director. And Madam Merritt, are you able to answer the questions with regard to A, the publication and notification for this meeting, and B, the sewage allocation? Unfortunately, Ms. Merritt, you're muted right now.
Okay, through you, Your Worship, I can definitely answer the sewer allocation question, and Ms. Furness will have to speak to the publication that was done for this application. Again, at this time, we're still doing a technical review for this development. So as far as the number of units allocated for this development, as you are aware, we review our uncommitted reserve capacity on a yearly basis based on flows that reach our sewage treatment facility. And this development has certainly been on our books for quite a few years. When we came to council asking for an extension, the 36 units are being carried in our uncommitted reserve capacity. So the plant is able to handle the additional units.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Furness, if you're available, would you be able to speak to the notification process?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of the township's website, it should have been posted on there. We'd have to go back and check to see what may have happened there if he's indicating that it hasn't been. So if that's the case, then there could have been a potential oversight in that. But I can confirm all additional posting requirements were met. There's signage posted on the site. Notice was mailed to all property owners within 120 meters of the site as well. Going forward, there'll be obviously this is just a public meeting, so there'll be further meetings to this brought forward in council with an additional notice. And so we can definitely ensure that that it's included on the website.
Thank you. And Mr. Kowalski, you've heard the answers. Do you have any further comment?
Well, I can go on about the drainage now.
Go ahead.
Back in, I don't know, 1991, there's a public meeting, and they're doing the Odessa public housing stuff there. And the property where the seniors residence is now, there was concerns if they put the fill in there that it was gonna cause problems with the drainage on Shane Street. And that was brought up in the public meeting in 91. Came on 93 or 94, there's another public meeting, and they waived the water studies and the soil testing in a scramble to get the public funding. And after that, the next year after that, we had a year and we had problems there. So, you know, things happened. There were petitions to the Ernestown Town Council, I guess, back then, and delegations and stuff, and they ended up improving the ditches on the north side of Shane Street and putting the fill in the backyards, but we still have I guess I read in the report, under functioning ditch on the north side. We've now spent money in the last couple of years improving the south side ditch. So that's tax money spent there. And I'm really concerned what's going to happen here. And we've already spent our tax dollars on these improvements, and it's natural drainage going down through there. So I'm not really too sure what's going to happen here. I'm concerned.
Thank you. Ms. Merritt, do you have comment with regard to the drainage?
Again, through your worship, we're still doing, this is only for this is for an OP amendment and a rezoning amendment. We're still going through the detailed design. We are aware that drainage is a concern, and we are definitely paying close attention to that part of the design.
Thank you. Mr. Kowalski, just from my own perspective, I can't speak to what happened in the 90s. That was definitely before I came on council. But I assure you that when we were reviewing this a few years ago, drainage was brought very much to the forefront as a concern for that region, and will continue to be something that we work to ensure as best as we possibly can as this moves forward.
Yeah, well, I seem that you know about the drainage, because I read another report there. The property behind the council there has a stream, and it's and stuff running through it, and it's unsuitable to put a new public building on. So I don't know. I'm just really concerned.
I appreciate that. And council, do we have any questions for Mr. Kowalski? I'm seeing no questions. Right. I'll say thank you very much for your input, Mr. Kowalski. We will continue to move forward. I believe, Madam Clerk, I believe the next up is Mr. Peacock.
I'm allowed to speak, I believe.
Mr. Peacock, can you hear us?
Hi, am I muted?
And we can hear you. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Perfect.
Can you give us your full name and address, please?
This is Nathan Peacock, but Rebecca Brown lives with me as well at 311 Main Street, and she'll be speaking on my behalf. It's just I have logged in on my tablet. She's here with me.
Fair enough. And Madam, if you would give us your name and address then, please.
My name is Rebecca Brown. I live at 311 Main Street. I wrote some comments that made the agenda, but I'm not sure if you're going to read those comments or not. I just have some very concerning questions I'd like to ask Ms. Tucker myself.
Well, if you could tell us your questions, and we'll see what we can do for a response.
Thank you. So I live at 311 Main Street, which is a known, I guess, watering hole of Odessa. I was just wondering if IBI Group had an evaluation by Career Callaway Group, sorry if I say that wrong, and it was commented during this this evaluation that it was not a 4-season water level, that they only did the spring melt. There's an approximation completed and no allocations of where they actually took this data. I find this concerning because the spring melt is not my highest water level of the year. I was just wondering why they thought that was sufficient, because in previous meetings, I have in fact sent council pictures of water levels in November, which happened to be up to my waistline in my own basement. I was just wondering if that 4th season was going to be completed and if council was aware of that.
Thank you. I will go to Ms. Tucker for a response with regard to the studies that have been done. Ms. Tucker, you're muted right now.
Sorry. Thank you, Ms. Brown. So we did the studies as were required by the municipality, and we have gone back and forth now several times with staff, with the Conservation Authority, as well as the peer reviewers on what was required and what we needed to do to move forward with this project. Should the city or the municipality require a 4-season study, that can be implemented as a draft plan condition that we would be required to fulfill as part of the subdivision agreement. So that it's not, we weren't required to it. These comments we've received have not said we need to do the 4-season study. And that's part of why we have not proceeded with it at this point.
Thank you. I'll go to Ms. Merritt. Did you have any comment with regard to the studies? You may have lost. Oh, there she is.
Taking a little bit longer to turn this on. I don't have a further comment on this, Your Worship. Again, the technical review is not there yet. This is just a public meeting for us to gather comments. And when we come back to council with a report, we will provide some answers.
Thank you very much. Council, do we have any questions for this delegate? And I'm seeing none. And thank you very much for your comments. Did you have anything further to add, ma'am?
Just one comment. All those all the comments were added to the agenda. Are you going to review them and get back to those people?
And council has all of these comments before us, and the commitment from this public meeting is that the comments will be addressed by our staff prior to any bylaw coming forward to council. And I see Ms. Merritt nodding, and I got the process right. And so yes, the comments will be responded to into each of them before
Perfect.
this
Thank
goes
you.
forward. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak on the issue of 315 Main Street, Odessa? And again, I will ask, if you are interested in speaking to it, you use the raise hand feature. Madam Clerk, are you seeing anyone? I'm not right now.
I'm not, Your Worship.
Nope.
Oh, Mr. Kowalski.
Mr. Kowalski. And we typically only allow people to speak once, but Mr. Kowalski, if you have a quick question, I will allow it. And we can't hear you yet. You're still muted.
I just had a quick conversation with one of my neighbors today, and they have a 4-generation farm there that they've been working on, and they're quite concerned about this development, and they're just very concerned about the green factor and the climate change aspects and how it would affect them. That's about what I have to say about that. Thanks.
Greatly appreciate it. And if you could get them to send in their comments in writing or phone the office to provide those comments, we can include those in the comments that will be addressed as this report moves further. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kowalski. Okay. Anyone else? Madam Clerk, are you seeing anyone?
Yes, Your Worship. Ann McIntosh, I'll just allow to speak.
Ms. McIntosh, I believe you've come into the front. If you can unmute, can you tell us your name and address, and then give us your thoughts on this, please?
Well, my concern, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes. Go
Okay,
ahead.
great. I've never done this before, so I'm an amateur at this.
We're all learning.
Okay, well, I'm not a property owner. I'm a resident in the seniors resident around the corner. And my concerns are largely environmental and quality of life. Like, I know Mr. Kowalski mentioned somebody who was concerned because they were a 4-generation farmer. The thing is that once this starts, the quality of life of the people who have lived here for generations and the people who have come here because this is what we like. Once again, our quality of life is just being disregarded so that somebody can build a development. Like, this is a rural area and it's quiet and the air is clean and we hear birds and trees and wind and we get to smell of the hay and the grass. And we get to look at the world the way it was supposed to be. And it seems like for myself, every time I've found a place like this to live, after a few years, I've got to pull up and leave because, well, here comes the developer and it's all gone again. And all this discussion that's going on now in the world about global warming and climate change and so on, this is relevant because every time you destroy something like this, chop down trees, pave over grass, that's part of the world that's not getting cleaned again. And you can't go back. Once you've dug it up, paved it over and built on it, it's gone forever, forever and ever. You'll never get it back. If we're going to try to do anything about preserving the world for people's children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, I don't have any, but probably most of you do. It takes all of us, and we have to start somewhere. And it's all the little people like us, all working together, that maybe can turn the tide and get the world back the way it's supposed to be. And there's social problems that come because people can't get away from each other, because there's no place that they can go to stop trying to move at the speed of light and of the speed of light and go back to remembering that they're people, they're not machines. You go out, you walk in the woods, you walk in the fields, you listen to the birds, you look around you, and the stresses of the world disappear. Where do we go? And what do we do when that's gone? And once you've done this, that's the beginning. Somebody else comes in behind these guys and wants to develop something else. And before you know it, we're Kingston. Then before you know it, we're Toronto. And that's my concerns. I mean, I'll be dead and buried by the time that happens. But in the meantime, I'm going to lose something that means a great deal to me because I won't be able to enjoy this anymore either. Anyway, that's my concerns. And that's all I had to say about it.
And I appreciate you bringing it forward, Ms. McIntosh. Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for Ms. McIntosh? And I'm seeing none. I'll say thank you very much, Ms. McIntosh. And as I say, your comments will be added into the report and addressed by staff. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the public meeting regarding 315 Main Street, Odessa?
I have Mr. Cunningham, I believe.
Mr. Cunningham, I think you were interested in the Bath project, not the Odessa project, but if you wish to comment on the Odessa project. Mr. Cunningham, can you hear me? See you in, if you could unmute.
I can hear you. I'm just going to wait till the Bath, the next item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll call you in at that time.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with regard to the 315 Main Street Odessa project application? And I see hands up from the same people that have already spoken to us. Again, traditionally, this is one person gets one shot at this. Is there anyone new? I'm seeing no one new. And Mr. Cunningham still has his hand up, but that's for the next one. We have Mr. Peacock. Oh, Ms. Tucker, you have the numbers? Yeah.
I have the numbers and I also have an update on the four-season hydrogeological study.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So the swim pond has 318 cubic meters of storage. And the parking lot has about 130 cubic meters of storage for a total of 77 cubic meters of storage for a total of 395 cubic meters of storage on site. Based on the current flows today, we are actually only required to have 131 cubic meters. So we have close to 3 times the amount of storage that we need on site. And with respect to the four-season hydrogeological, in our second submission, we did submit the four-season hydrogeological for the site.
Okay, so it has been submitted. Is that a public document?
Should be, because it is part of the application.
Ms. Furness?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, they're all public documents. So if any member of council or any public member wishes to receive copies of them, they can definitely reach out to the planning division and we can provide those.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. With that, again, I'll come back to council. Any questions for Ms. Tucker or staff? Seeing none. I see Mr. Peacock's hand is still up, and I believe that's, and I'll be honest, I've forgotten the the lady who was speaking. I will ask the clerk to bring her in very briefly for a follow-up comment, and then we'll bring this to a close. Okay.
Yes, council. It's actually Nathan is speaking this time. And it's more of a comment than a question. I know that there are at least 2 landowners adjacent to this property that have had difficulties with trying to get on the council, trying to get onto the Zoom meetings, the technology, what have you. I know that they would like to be here, but they're having some technical issues. So I've received some messages from them. That's all. I just wanted to get that information through. That's all I have.
I thank you very much. And again, I would ask anyone who wishes to make comment with regard to this application to, the best way would be to provide it by email, if that's possible, provide it in writing at the township office, or at the very least phone the township office and provide comments that way. And all comments will be addressed prior to this coming back to council, or as this comes back to council, before any decision is made. And with that, I will say last call for the public meeting for 315 Main Street. Okay, and we do have a recommendation. Right? For the recommendation is that this be brought forward to council once the comments from the departments, the agencies, and the public have been addressed, that the units of capacity previously allocated within the water and Loyalist sewage systems for the development of consent be extended to June 30th to allow for the comments to be addressed and the draft plan of subdivision to be granted. And if the affected property receiving allocation has not obtained draft plan approval by June 30th, then this allocation would be made available to other properties. That is a recommendation before us. Council, do you have any questions with regard to the recommendations? And I'm seeing no hands. Then I will ask if there's someone willing to make a motion. Council, are we going to make a motion on either on the recommendation or another motion? Anyone? I'll go to the deputy. Thank you.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendations.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendations. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Parks is seconding. Thank you. Deputy, any comment?
Just very briefly, this motion is strictly for basically receiving the information that we've got tonight, plus what will still come in, so that it can be considered during the review. So that's why this motion is needed to be able to take all the comments and concerns and address them appropriately.
Thank you. Seconder, any comment?
Just to echo what the deputy had said, yes, this is just really to get all the information back before council so that a proper decision can be made. So that's why I seconded the motion.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? I'm seeing no further comments. Then I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of the public meeting for 315 Main Street. We now move on to the public meeting regarding 496 Main Street, Bath. Okay. And I turn to our director, okay, to introduce Yes. Oh, before I go to the director, Councillor Parks, did you have something?
I just wanted to mention to the clerk that I did receive an email from Mr. Hudason as well as Dave Salter that they are trying to join the public meeting later on. I just wanted to make sure she was aware of that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Merritt, you would like to introduce this public meeting?
Through your worship, yes, so staff, we don't have anything further to add to the report that's on the agenda, but I believe the applicant's consultant is here to make a presentation as well.
The applicant's consultant here to make a presentation. Do we know the name? Is that Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
And then ask staff to allow Ms. Gilchrist to present. I believe then Ms. Gilchrist is here, and Ms. Stuck. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Hi, I'm through you, Mr. Chair. It's Ms. Stuckey.
Ms. Stuckey, welcome. Right, you're here to present on this application?
Yes, yes. So hello, council and mayor. My name is Emma Stuckey. I'm a planner at IBI Group. I'll set up to share my screen to start the presentation.
Please go ahead.
Is everyone able to see the slides?
Not quite yet. I'm seeing black screen right now. Other members of council? Anyone?
Just showing black screen, your worship.
Something's not working properly.
Okay, here I'll stop and try again.
And I'm still getting black screen. It says that you're sharing the screen, but I'm not seeing any screens.
It does say double click to enter full screen mode. That may be that it's off. If you've got two screens, it may be off on your other screen and just not showing up on this screen yet.
I'm still seeing black screen. Council, the rest of council, are you able to see the presentation? I'm seeing heads shaking no.
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 Okay, I'll try. Try one more time. Third time's the charm.
Third time's the charm. And I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm still getting black screen.
Black screen. Is it possible? I did share the presentation via email to Ms. Furness and Mr. Casemore today. Is it possible for someone else to maybe pull up the slide?
Ms. Furness,
sorry, I'm not sure what's going on my end.
Okay, if you could stop sharing for us so that we can come back to regular view, I will turn to Ms. Furness. Do you have that presentation and are you able to show it?
Your worship, I believe we have a PDF of it that I can put up on the screen now, and they'll just have to let me know when to change.
And okay, please do so. Okay, I'm now seeing a presentation on 496 Main Street Bath. Council, are you seeing the same? I'm seeing nods, so I'm hoping that the public can see this as well. And with that, Ms. Stuckey, if you would like to go ahead, and when you need the slide to change, you can address that to the clerk.
Great, thank you. Thanks for your help with the technical difficulties. So again, my name's Emma Stuckey. I'm a planner at IBI Group. We're the consultant planners for our Y Legacy contractor. So today we're here to discuss the applications for draft plan of subdivision for the property at 496 Main Street in Bath. So the purpose of the application is a draft plan of subdivision to create 10 new residential blocks with 9 semi-detached blocks with 18 units and 1 townhouse block with 4 units for a total of 22 units. An official plan amendment is requested to change the designation from commercial to medium density residential. This is required in order to permit townhouses and semi-detached dwellings on the subject lands. And then a zoning bylaw amendment application is proposed in order to implement the proposed draft plan of subdivision and change the zone from a commercial zone to a residential zone. Next slide, please. So here's an image of the subject property, which shows the surrounding lot fabric and location of the property in the village of Bath. Next slide, please. The area context to the north is Bath Creek, Loyalist Golf and Country Club, and low density residential development. To the east is the village of Bath, various commercial uses, low density residential uses. The south, properties along Main Street, Bath, low density residential uses, and Lake Ontario. West is low density residential uses, Country Club Drive, and lands designated for aggregate extraction. So in the area context, those of you familiar with Bath, primarily single detached homes, 1 to 2 stories, range of construction dates, and range of architectural styles. Next slide, please. The site has an area of 1.2 hectares with 93 meters of frontage on Main Street. There's an existing commercial building on the site. There's a U-shaped driveway with 2 entrances to Main Street. The land is cleared and grassy, and Bath Creek runs along the north of the property. Next slide, please. So from these pictures, we can see the view of the property from east to west and the existing conditions along the property lines. Next slide, please. So again, here's the proposed concept plan, proposing semi-detached residential blocks with 18 semi-detached units and 4 townhouse units, all around a cul-de-sac with an open space area at the rear of the property, which will be designated to the township for conservation. Next slide, please. During the pre-consultation meeting with the township, we had certain design considerations established to help guide the development of this subdivision, including providing a mix of housing types, being set back from the floodplain, that's Bath Creek, minimizing the number of entrances to Main Street, providing a minimum of 2 parking spaces per unit. Next slide, please. The proposed development will be serviced by municipal water and sanitary services. Servicing will be confirmed as a condition of draft approval. Block 11, which includes the lands along Bath Creek and the floodplain, is a natural open space block, which will be dedicated to Loyalist Township for conservation. This dedication will occur in consultation with the Conservation Authority. The owner will also be required to provide cash in lieu of parkland. Access to the site is a 18-meter wide public cul-de-sac connecting to Main Street, and individual driveways are proposed for the 4 townhouse units. Next slide, please. Here's an example built form. Renderings shown are conceptual at this point, but show 2 to 2.5 story buildings, 2 to 3 bedroom units. Owner intends to build a high quality product based on feedback from the virtual open house. Took it back to the owner that a more traditional colonial design is preferred for the area. Buyers will be choosing floor plans and landscaping will be required. Next slide, please. So in terms of going to the policy context, so the proposed development is consistent with the intent of the provincial policy statement as it redevelops an underutilized site in an area intended for development. It's within the urban growth boundary, efficiently uses land and resources, does not result in the uneconomic extension of services. The proposed residential use is compatible with the adjacent residential uses, and no public health and safety issues are anticipated as the development set back far enough from Bath Creek. Next slide, please. Here is an image of the current official plan designation. So the existing designation is for commercial land uses, and medium density residential is proposed. The medium density residential is proposed in order to permit the townhouse use. We note that the proposed density is actually low density. It's less than 31 units per net hectare, which is what's identified in the township's official plan as the threshold there. So seeking to go into the medium density residential designation to permit the townhouse built form. Next slide, please. So residential uses on the subject lands are appropriately located. It's within the settlement area of Bath, in an area that's within walking distance of parkland, community facilities, commercial uses. It's compatible with adjacent uses. The proposed residential use is more compatible with adjacent residential properties compared to a commercial use. It meets the functional needs of site users. Parking and amenity space are provided on the site consistent with the township standards. Helps to achieve intensification targets. Supports residential intensification in the settlement area of Bath, and complies with division of land policies. So engineering studies have been submitted which demonstrate that the development of the subject lands is orderly and logical, meaning that servicing can be provided, traffic can be accommodated, and stormwater management can be managed as well. Next slide, please. So the existing zoning is a commercial C2 zone, and we're proposing to place the lands into residential zones. It will be a residential type 4 zone for the semi-detached dwellings and a residential type 5 zone for the townhouse units. And we note that site-specific performance standards are proposed throughout to be able to implement the development as shown. Next slide, please. So we have heard comments so far, and we did host a virtual open house to solicit feedback from the public and have a discussion about the proposed development. We heard concerns with compatibility and scale, concerns with potential traffic impact and access, concerns with availability of water and wastewater services, concerns about the safety of the open space block and parkland, and concerns with flooding and stormwater management. Next slide, please. So concerns related to compatibility and heritage, concerns about the density, the size of the lots, compatibility specifically with the heritage character of Bath, preference for fewer single detached homes, and need for greater setbacks and separation. So we do note that we have heard all of these comments and taken them back to the developer and are awaiting township comments before making changes to the design. But to summarize, the proposed density is considered low density in the official plan. The lot sizes and setbacks are consistent with modern construction standards. Again, we note that pending township comments, these can be reviewed. Final layout and building locations will be refined through this process. The buildings will comply with the maximum height of 10 meters outlined in the zoning bylaw. Supports the addition of semi-detached and townhouse dwellings on this site, supports providing a range of mix and housing types in Bath. From a land use perspective, supports the efficient use of land and settlement areas, making use of existing services. And the proposed built form is compatible with adjacent residential uses in terms of scale and built form. Next slide, please. So open space, heard the concerns here, that need for planning and landscape, concerns with the safety of block 11 for parkland, and concern with access to open space for residents. We note that landscaping will be required. The intention is to preserve trees wherever possible. Block 11 will be dedicated as open space for conservation use. It's not intended to be a park space or a public park space. It's intended to let the floodplain function along the creek, and cash in lieu of parkland will be provided to the township. Next slide, please. Traffic access, heard concerns about traffic frequency, concerns with amount of parking, need for visitor parking, concerns with entrances onto Main Street, ability for trucks to turn around, and the need for sidewalks. So according to the traffic impact study, forecasted traffic levels are anticipated to have negligible impact on surrounding roads. The cul-de-sac meets the minimum turn radius required for single unit trucks. The proposal will be reviewed by the fire department in the technical comments, and the proposed development meets the minimum parking requirements for residential uses. Next slide, please. Engineering, again, concerns with water and wastewater servicing, concerns about capacity to support the development, and concerns about stormwater management, flooding, and water quality and runoff. So preliminary calculations show there is capacity to service the proposed development. These reports are available and are being reviewed by the township as part of their technical review. Capacity will be confirmed by the township as a condition of draft approval. The storm sewer services will be installed with a connection to Main Street storm sewers. And there is going to be an oil grit separator installed to mitigate any adverse water quality effects. And more details on these measures are available in the accompanying report. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, Based on this, the proposed residential uses on the site are consistent with the intent of the PPS, conform to the official plan policies, and are compatible with surrounding uses. Next slide, please. So thank you. We welcome questions and discussion.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stuckey. Council, do we have any questions with regard to the presentation just made? I'm seeing no questions, so I will turn this to the public. And again, this is a public meeting. Council shall hear in person or by his or her council solicitor or agent any person who claims to be affected by this application. At this time, I will turn to the clerk and ask her to identify people that are wishing to attend.
Okay, through your worship, Mr. Cunningham has been allowed to speak.
Go ahead, Mr. Cunningham. You'll have to unmute. And again, name and address and tell us your comments, please.
Doug Cunningham, One Country Club Drive in Bath, just 150 meters away from the proposed subdivision. Many of the concerns that I have got are the building of what is going into this place, because of what's beside this project is a home that was built in 1850, a home across the street, which was 1850. And you start going down that street and you're almost going back into the 1800s. And I think this will exactly take away from the heritage bit of Bath, Ontario. It'll become just another little place like Amherst View, where you're going to have all these different kinds of things in there. We should be trying to keep this as a certain thing. I can see if they wanted to develop this, to put this into colonial style homes or period type homes, which can be built very easily by a builder. And I did check this builder out. He looks like he is a quality builder. I think this is something, I don't know anything about the water plane, but I know when I walk there, in the last meeting, a lot of people had concerns about runoff, that where's it going to go? Is it going to run into the Bath Creek that's there? And we have a few pollution problems along there. And another thing was, I could see that if they could take those 4 townhouses out and make that all parkland, the people who have children in that area would have a place to play. Now, there's no place for them to go. You can't take a 3-year-old down to the park all the time. And also with those four townhouses there, that's 4 extra driveways on that Bath Road. And right now, I call that the Bath Road Speedway. You can't believe how fast the cars are going on that. Even the trucks coming from the Farge. Today, most of the trucks were doing 65 to 70 Ks, completing with the cars also. All you need is one little child to go out there and boom. And it's council's responsibility to make sure that that speed limit is down. But also, there's just too much congestion on a weekend with a subdivision we've got behind us now with only 1 exit. There could be possibly 200 cars there. You think on a holiday weekend, someone trying to turn left will never get out, let alone going down the street again. You're just going to have one big bottleneck. So I just think that if they could go back to the drawing board and maybe do a single family development in there with colonial style homes that would match what's going on through there. That's what I like to say. I hope someone else is here that knows more about the land development and so forth around there with the streams and so forth. Is there anybody else here on that? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Cunningham? We will take note of your concerns, and staff are taking notes to address those concerns in the report that will come back to council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I turn to the clerk for the next attendee for the public meeting with regard to 496 Main Street, Bath.
Mr. Hilson.
Mr. Hilson. And come on in. You're
Thank you
unmuted.
very much.
Go ahead, Mr. Hilson.
My first question would be, is there any allowance for low-income housing in this development? And I would ask the same question of the previous presentation. Will there be any public access along the creek? For anyone who wants to walk along the creek, as is done in New Zealand, where all waterways, lakes, rivers, ocean, nobody can build and prevent people from walking along the shoreline of any of those water features. I think that's a wonderful thing. And I've been there, so I know what it's like. Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We have those questions. Ms. Furness or Ms. Merritt, are you able to answer the question with regard to public access on the waterway? Or would that be something that would come forward in the later report?
Through your worship, I see Ms. Furness is on, so she may correct me. But as far as the development, that might be, and I'm not sure that they're still able to talk, but that might be the consultants might be able to propose to discuss a little bit more of what they have proposed as far as access to the creek.
Ms. Stuckey, are you able to respond to that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The proposal does include the dedication of Block 11 for conservation. This has been done in consultation with the Conservation Authority. Given that it is a floodplain, there were some potential safety concerns brought up with access, but owner and developer would be open to working with the township and Conservation Authority, as the land is intended to be dedicated to the township for conservation in consultation with them.
Thank you. And is anyone able to address the question with regard to low-income housing?
Through you, there are not designated affordable units proposed at this time, but semi-detached and townhouse dwellings are typically more affordable or more attainable compared to if singles were developed on the same lot. No formal partnership with affordable housing, but the proposed form is considered to be a more attainable form of housing.
Thank you. Again, your comments, Mr. Hilson, will be recorded and brought forward back in the report coming back to council. Do you have anything further, Mr. Hilson?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Then I'll go to the clerk. Do we have another attendee?
Yes, Mr. Salter.
Mr. Salter?
Mute.
Welcome, Mr. Salter. If you could unmute. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I have unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Do you give us your name and address and tell us your thoughts?
David Salter, 130 Factory Lane in Bath, just to the south of this proposed development. I've read through the staff report SR 1890, and the parts that struck me particularly where it says the municipality should provide an appropriate range and mix of housing options and densities. I should say that in the municipality, this is being provided in several other areas. For example, off Highway 6 south of the Taylor Kid and also off Spears Road. In all those areas, there are multi-residential units and semis. I don't think it's at all appropriate in this particular area. Also, which I noticed that the staff report had included my comments as well as those of all the others who have commented. However, I should just like to emphasize again that there's a requirement in the official plan for buffering between medium and low density uses to minimize the adverse impacts. And the plan as put out now shows no buffering at all. The third point I wanted to make is the request to reduce the side yard, front yard, and the various other yards. There's very large reductions required in the official plan yard designations. And I think that also illustrates the fact that this is not a suitable development for this area as it's currently indicated. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I'll turn to staff if there are any comments with those particular points. And
through your worship, not particularly, just that we've received the comments, and all of these comments will be considered when we come back to council with a report.
thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Salter. Okay. And I will turn to the clerk for next up.
We have Catherine Murphy.
Ms. Murphy. Can you hear me okay? If you could unmute, we'll find out if we can hear you. This time you still appear to be muted.
Unmute.
Now we can hear you.
Yes, this is going to be turn one off. Bev Hallman is going to speak.
Ms. Murphy, if I can offer a suggestion, if you have two systems running right now, turn one of them off.
Yes. It's coming. It's off.
There's something, your microphone is picking up your speaker.
Can you see me?
No, we can't see you.
Let's try this again. I just like to comment. Sorry, I'll have to leave it for now.
Okay. If you can still hear me, Ms. Murphy, we would really like you to put your comments in writing, or if you can join back in a few moments with solving that technical issue. Thank you.
Is it all right now, though? No.
You've still got the echo. It's a feedback loop. Okay, now that you're muted, we can hear each other. Again, if you can solve the technical issue, we would invite you back in to present, but in the meantime, we will move on to the next presenter. And if you're not able to address that, please provide it in writing through to the clerk.
Can you hear me now?
We can, and there's no echo.
Well, Bev, you can
Excellent.
use
Go
this
ahead.
one. It will be Bev Hallman that's speaking because we're sharing.
Hi, this is Beverly again.
Hi.
This is Beverly Hallman. I live at 483 Main Street.
Okay.
Now that I have had to move rooms, I haven't got a light to show what I wanted to talk about. However, what concerns me is the historic value of Bath. This is one of the oldest communities in Ontario. We have heritage homes up and down the street. And even though your consultant is only required to have blank, 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 and only required to be under 10 meters, and I think those rules should be put aside because of the historic value of the town. We have tried very hard in Bath to keep it in its historic nature. We had a LACAC, which was local historic conservation. A lot of people aren't aware of that. We had, and we had an historic society. We had the Fairfield Good Site House. We have the Masonic Hall. We have the town hall. And when we recited the town hall, there were a lot of complaints because we weren't staying to the historic nature of Bath. So there are many, many people who need to have this town remain as it is. Now, I invite people to take a drive into Amherstview, and particularly on Walden Pond, it's called, to have a look at the homes that are in there. They are chock-a-block on top of each other. They are incredibly tall because a walkout basement evidently isn't a walkout basement out the back. A walkout basement is a garage on the main floor And then above that, the main floor of the house, the living section of the house, plus the bedrooms on the third floor. This is taller than anything we have here in Bath. And as I said, they're allowed to do it. The 10 meters is what they're allowed to do. But we should consider that in Bath, we need to maintain the historic values. The first comment, or in the first comments, they were talking about medium density housing. And they made no mention whatsoever of the 130 homes that are going in directly behind here, which are medium density. So we are not lacking in medium density homes in Bath. So plus there are many other subdivisions going in. One other comment, cash in lieu of parkland. What's that going to do for the village? What's that going to do for it's going to give you money in your pocket to do something, but it's not going to give our children places to play. I'm directly across the street from this place, and it's just amazing to me that they could consider putting such a, I don't even know what to call it, so many houses on that tiny piece of land. Also, when we went in to have a look at Walden Pond, which is in Amherst-View, as I said, and it's walkout basements, which are actually the floor on the ground floor is the walkout basement. So then the living quarters are above that and above that again. There was an incredible amount of parking on the street. There were cars all over the street. We couldn't get down the street without swerving back and forth to go around cars that were parked there. So I think that you're dreaming if you think that there's not going to be a parking problem on this street, especially with fire trucks and emergency vehicles getting in there. And every house has at least 2 cars, if not 3. And there's just definitely not enough parking, and they will park on the street, and they will possibly park on other streets that are nearby. And this is a problem in Bath. We're just an accident waiting to happen on that main street. Anyway, that's my comments for now. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And if there's no other comments or questions from council, and I'm seeing none, I'll say thank you. And we'll move to our next commenter. Madam Clerk?
We have Mr. Cunningham again.
Before I return to Mr. Cunningham, I'm wondering that we do have a lot of people in attendance and in the audience. Is there anyone else who wishes to present, a new person to present? If there are no furthers, oh, I see a few coming in. Madam Clerk, if you could go to the next one.
Allowed to speak, Mark Cant.
Hi, this is Mark Cant. I live at 335 Division Street in Kingston, but I'm the estate trustee for the home of Leon and Teresa Cant at 517 Main Street, Bath.
Thank you.
Where I grew up. And my main concern is that I'm reading through the council report or staff report and such. A lot of people seem to be thinking of the site as having been a restaurant, which, yes, it was for a good many years. Before it was a restaurant, it was a fish cannery. And the fish were dropped off at the wharf at the bottom of the factory lane, taken from Lake Ontario back in the 40s and 50s and such, brought up to the cannery for cleaning and packaging. Then there's fish waste coming from it, parts that obviously you don't want to find in a can of fish. Back in summer of 1982, I worked for the Village of Bath, going through its back records, basically helping to trim out stuff that was no longer needed. I saw no records with respect to the fish cannery at the time, but honestly, back in the 40s, the 50s, the early 60s, environmental stuff was not really a consideration. And disposal of waste was not so much a consideration. There's as well understanding of pollution in the fish, particularly in the Great Lakes, was definitely not a consideration yet. I remember in the 70s when that started to be understood and was something of a surprise, because I was a kid at the time, I'd fishing on the dock out in front of the house. The wastes from the fish, I'm not sure where it was disposed, but there is potential it was disposed on the site, buried in the ground there. From what I'm seeing in staff reports, there was an understanding that there wasn't the potential of an environmental risk there. My understanding is that if it was buried on the site or burnt on the site or whatever, you're dealing with the pollutants the fish would have had, including mercury, which would be in the soil. I would recommend, before proceeding with housing development on that site, to double check the soil. If necessary, some remediation happening. Obviously, operating something like a restaurant where people are in and out quickly enough, everything's contained within the building, is a different thing from kids playing in the backyard in soil that, for all we know, could be contaminated.
Okay, Mr. Kent?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for those comments. I will ask staff if they have any comments with regard to an environmental assessment on the property.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that one was required. And a record of site condition was submitted as part of the application for this, so which is currently being reviewed by staff as part of the technical review. So record of site conditions are required and issued by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks to confirm that the analysis that was done and proper cleanup and everything was completed in order to change a non-residential use and switch it to a more residential one. So we're not permitted to recommend approval for changing the site to residential unless that has been submitted and is satisfactory.
Thank you.
Okay. And to your understanding, it is satisfactory.
And that's what, go ahead.
Okay.
That's what it had indicated, but we're currently reviewing it all to ensure that, our engineering team. So.
And the final comments from staff on that will be included in the final report?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Mr. Kent. Okay. Are there others in the audience who wish to present?
We have Rick and Ann Myers.
Okay. We welcome them in. Mr. and Mrs. Myers, did we lose them? They don't appear on my screen. Oh, there they are.
I'm pushing the unmute. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, excellent, excellent.
Give us your name and address and then make your comments, please.
Thank you. It's Rick Myers, 23 Country Club Drive in Bath, and we back onto the Bath Creek along our south side. Just a couple of quick questions to IBI group. Number one, she talked about not removing trees or trying to avoid to remove trees or if necessary. Now along that property front, there are a number of rather large trees that they're saying they don't have to remove, but based on the plans that you currently have for that density, I'd be rather miffed at how you could possibly not remove those trees in order to get those houses in there. That's number one. Number two, you talk about 2 parking spots. What are you considering 2 parking spots? Obviously the driveway. Are you considering the garage as another parking spot? That's my second question. My third question is to the council itself, is the water issue along there. As you know, you improved that area just recently, but still, if you've ever driven along Main Street during a rainstorm or shortly thereafter, there are still a number of issues with water flooding the street. Also, that's something to consider. The traffic issue is going to be a major concern. As council knows, phase 8, the Caitlin project, is quickly coming to a point where they're going to be building homes. Now, out of that subdivision, there is only one exit, and that is Country Club Drive out onto Main Street. So you're talking a substantial increase in traffic going east and west on Main Street. And now you're going to add another 22 residents in an area that's low density and should remain low density. My other concern is IBI talked about 2 to 2.5 stories. What are you putting in a half story on top of that house? I can see a 2-story, I can see a 3-story, but what in tarnation is a half a story? So I'd like that answered. And finally, the building that's there itself is obviously owned by or IBM or whoever owns it. Has it been examined for asbestos? And if it has been, what were the results from that? So those are my questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. There was a number of questions there, and I see a representative from the IBI group has come on screen. Ms. Stuckey, are you able to answer some of those? I know that our staff have recorded all of those questions, and it will be included in the report. But Ms. Stuckey, if you have answers right this moment, you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Your Worship. I'll comment first on the comment about trees. So the property will be subject to like a landscaping plan and tree removal and preservation plan. Intention would be to preserve trees where possible. It is quite a large municipal right-of-way in front of the property, so there may be instances where the trees are within the boulevard and can be preserved as well, and new plantings will be provided, so that detail is to follow, but will be looked at as part of the township's review. I can confirm that yes, one of the 2 parking spaces is in the garage, so there's a parking space in the garage and a parking space in the driveway. And then in terms of the 2.5 stories, typically the half story would be one with a peaked roof, like a story with the peaked roof, and you see the one rendering showed the dormer windows. And in terms of asbestos testing, I'll reiterate again, the phase 1 environmental assessment was completed, and any demolition of the existing building would be contained and done according to all regulations.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Myers, you've heard the comments, and again, these questions will be recorded and answered in the final report. Do you have anything else to add this time?
Just for council to consider, if you have been into Westbrook, where they've built those row houses along Highway 2, Highway 2 there. Again, that's the typical type of residence where they say there's 2 parking spots. And as you can see, they are small townhouses, and there's nothing wrong with townhouses. The garage is full of everything but a car. They have 1 car in the driveway, and they have cars and trucks lining that little street there. And that's exactly what's going to happen with the IBI group project in Bath. it's these things that they say, oh, well, you've got 2 parking spots, one in the garage. Yeah, right. I have a 2-car garage and I have a hard time getting my 1 car in with all the stuff one has and collects, including lawnmowers and snow blowers and so forth. But nevertheless, I'm certainly supportive of this type of group coming in and wanting to do something for the betterment of Bath and bringing new people to Bath. I just think that they're being overly optimistic in thinking that many units could really have any way it could make Bath better. We have lots of places that are being built, as a former person spoke about. Phase 8 for one, the new subdivision that's going in beside Fast Freddy's in that mall area up there, which is quite large as well. We're not really hard pressed for those types of dwellings being stuck in the middle of a low density area such as what they're proposing now. Like I say, I certainly propose the growth of Bath, and I'd like to see it grow, but I think they're just being over optimistic in what they want to plan there, and they should really consider about going back to the drawing board on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Right. I come back to the clerk. Is there anything further? Anyone else that wishes to speak?
I have Mr. Cunningham with his hand up. I'm not sure whether he's.
And let's bring Mr. Cunningham in for a brief comment, and I will reiterate brief.
He's removed his.
Oh, he's removed his hand.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
I'm not seeing any. Nope, it's back up again.
We'll give him one final option.
Okay, should be able to unmute.
Mr. Cunningham, if you can hear me, you can unmute and give us your final thoughts.
Oh, I'm unmuted.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm thinking of regarding the what Mr. Meyer had said, and I totally agree with him that if they decide to build something in there, it's got to be like what's there now. I don't think we're really against them building. It's just what they're going to build in there, which is the big question. This is what I think. And I know there was a couple of, and I think the environmental studies really got to be looked at before that project goes. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cunningham.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else? Looking at final call. Oh, I see Mr. Hudason's hand up again. Hopefully they'll be able to chime in. Are we able to bring them in, Madam Clerk?
They have to accept to come over. I'm trying to move them into the.
Okay, we can see Mr. Hudason in the main area. If he is able to unmute, he's welcome to provide his comments. Mr. Hudason, are you able to unmute? It might be Jean as well. Ms. Hudason. I'm not seeing them being able to unmute. We cannot hear you yet.
So there will be a button. I'm just asking them to unmute. They should just be able to tap on that and then be able to speak.
It looks like a microphone on my screen anyway.
Yeah.
There you are. We can hear you, Joe.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can. We can.
Oh, Mr. Reeve, Deputy Reeve, members of council, it's really a pleasure to address you again. Now, what I understand is that there's been a lot of representation from people in the area And I haven't been able to speak to anyone in the area who really supports this development. There are a lot of concerns. And as everybody stated earlier, the concerns are about the quality of life in Bath, the idea that it's an historical place and that it's a smaller place with a lot of memories. We're concerned about the density, even though on paper, according to regulations, it could be classified as a lower density kind of a development. But that's a matter of numbers, not a matter of lifestyle. The other thing is the whole traffic study. I agree with the concerns that the other people have brought up as well, in terms of other development in Bath that's affecting Main Street. Anybody coming out of Loyalist Estates turns east, and that's across the lane of traffic that's going to be still just as awkward and prolific as it is now. So it raises a problem there. I've been to other cul-de-sacs in Bath and in Aberystwyth, and they're cul-de-sacs that have single family residents. They have double driveways and still a problem with parking. In this case, what's proposed is 2 cars, one in the garage and one in the driveway. But with the frontages such as they are, so small, there isn't a lot of room to park in a cul-de-sac like that. And I've seen in cul-de-sacs here that people park right in the middle when they have company. The kind of development that's being proposed here was idealized by the developer as something for seniors. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. I think the market, if those houses are affordable, will see young families with children. And that cul-de-sac is going to turn into a playground. The cul-de-sac, the way it looks on the land, on the dimensions, opens up onto the Bath Road, Main Street, and there's no sidewalk leading to the main street. That means that anybody coming out of there, including smaller people, just walk along the road onto the Bath Road sidewalks. That should be addressed. The number of other concerns that I've heard are similar as well. There's a question of parking. That's the parking on Main Street, the traffic on Main Street. I don't know what the developer's traffic study arrived at, but I think everybody that I've spoken to naturally see that there's going to be an impact on the traffic in the area. And everybody that I've spoken to feels like citizen of Bath in the neighborhood that they live in and have enjoyed so much. So just reflecting what people have told me here, and I'm sure that all these concerns have been submitted in writing and tabled at the open house. So thank you very much for your support. Not support. I thought I was canvassing again. Thank you very much for hearing me, and I appreciate this opportunity to address council.
Thank you, Mr. Hudason. Okay. If there's any other further comments? Madam Clerk?
Sorry, we have 2 people who have spoken before, Doug Cunningham and Catherine Murphy, or whoever it was with Murphy.
I appreciate the enthusiasm. I will allow Ms. Murphy to come back in, but Mr. Cunningham's already had a couple opportunities. I think I'll cut it off there, but please bring Ms. Murphy back in for a final comment.
I'm hoping right now that you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Good, and it was not me speaking before.
No,
it was, so I'm whole lot of concerns. I read the 116 pages of comments. Right at the very beginning, it said something that may be really simple, but it said that we have schools, plural, and really we don't. We have one. And so the buses for all the separate school kids and all the high school kids would be leaving the village. So that's another concern about that area. It's very, very congested. And, you know, I liked what I think it was Mrs. McIntosh in Odessa was talking about is, you know, we moved to an area so we can hear the birds. Well, right now we hear traffic. And I really think that we would be making a huge mistake for the Village of Bath, for the historic Village of Bath. And I was part of LACAC, so I'm, you know, quite passionate about that, is we're making a very big mistake that we won't be able to undo. And so all my further comments are written. But I would also move that we are able to write in, email in like the Odessa people are, for those that haven't been able to make contact.
Absolutely, Ms. Murphy. We would encourage everyone to communicate as much as possible, as quickly as possible as well, by email or obviously through this public forum.
Thanks.
Thank you.
What is the time frame for this stuff?
And I will turn to the director or Ms. Furness for what's the time frame on comments. Ms. Furness, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The Planning Act timelines, our comments can be submitted right up until council makes a decision and passes a bylaw. However, I would just caution everybody that staff are currently in the technical review of these applications. So we would really like to be able to incorporate any public feedback into consideration in our technical comments back to the applicant, which we're aiming to send back within the month. So the sooner we can get those to consider any additional comments to our comments that are being currently drafted right now would be very helpful.
Thank you.
I have one more comment is that I understand that you send out notices, and I was included in that because I'm part of a radius. But I think in the Village of Bath, the radius really needs to be a whole lot huger, because it is a Village of Bath. It's the historic Village of Bath. It's not just X amount of meters from where the old anchor was. So I really feel that we've left out a whole lot of people that have a whole lot of passion about this village.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Murphy.
Thank you.
And I will come back. And wait a moment. Council, do we have any comments? There, Ms. Murphy is now muted, so that should work better. Okay. Do we have any other comments? And I'll turn to the clerk one last time. Is there anyone new wishing to speak to this public meeting?
Not that I see, Your Worship.
Okay. With that, then I will move forward. We have a recommendation before us that will receive all of these comments, and that a recommendation be brought forward to council once the comments from the departments, the agencies, and the public have been addressed. And there's a motion to that, or recommendation to that effect. I would look to council for a motion. I'll go to Councillor Buderick. Councillor Buderick, so moved. Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Gordon, thank you. Any comments? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. At this time, that brings us to the end of the public meetings. I would like to say thank you to the audience members and all of the speakers on the various the two topics. Appreciate your feedback. They will be incorporated into the reports, and those will be coming forward in a public manner before council at some date in the future. I'm not sure exactly how long it will take. But to that end, I do appreciate your participation and fighting through the technology that we're dealing with virtual meetings. So we come to the end of the public meetings. We move on to our agenda. At item 7.1 is the motion to adopt the agenda as it's presented before us. To the clerk, is there anything to add to the agenda at this time?
Not that I'm aware of, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council, are we happy with the agenda? Can we get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Townend, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Right. Any comment? All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? And seeing none. Okay, we'll move forward. First up, delegations. We have Ms. Kimberley with regard to the Odessa Fairgrounds. Do we have Ms. Kimberley in the audience? I see Mr. Field, who's also associated with the Odessa Ag Society. If Ms. Kimberley's not here, perhaps we can bring in Mr. Field.
Yeah, I've switched over. He should be able to speak now.
Mr. Field, we can see you, but you're muted right now, so we can't hear you.
There, can you hear us now?
We can hear you now. Is that Florence?
It is.
Welcome, Ms. Kimberley.
Thank you. So thank you for your time. This is regarding a call that we got from utilities about a huge water bill at the fairgrounds. After the call, we immediately checked to find no leaks, no water damage. So the consumption did not make sense to us as we'd been closed since March of 2020. We shut the water off and called our plumber, Mike Carey, who verified there was no leaks. All outside taps and water lines to exterior buildings are controlled from inside, and they had been blown out and all shut off. Loyalist Utilities came and did a download of the information from our meter and provided us with a graph of our usage, which showed that we used in excess of 235 cubic meters in one day. This translates to about 4 tractor trailer loads of water, which when you do the math, that volume is not possible to go through the meter and water lines that we have. We paid a portion of the bill, which we believe was in keeping with our usual bill. So we're asking council to forgive the remaining portion of the bill, not because the OAS cannot pay it, but because we feel there was a problem and no one has been able to explain. And we want to have suggestions on moving forward so it doesn't happen again. And we sent a letter to utilities saying that the Odessa Agriculture Society received a bill of $2,518.45 from Loyalist Township, examination of the fairgrounds water sewer system by both OAS maintenance people, licensed plumber, and township workers has not revealed any reason for the puzzling huge increase in usage. The puzzling is the operative word because due to COVID, it has resulted in cancellation of all our scheduled events and activities at the fairgrounds, including the fair, since March of 2020. Even regular cleaning of the buildings was suspended. The OAS is managed by volunteers, and we're striving to preserve the fairgrounds into the future for the benefit of the community. Despite the lack of revenue from rentals in the fair, the OAS is still responsible for insurance, maintenance, and utility expenses. Based on the amount of our previous bills, we sent a check for $515.54 to cover March 16th to May 15th billing. The OAS respectfully asks that the Loyalist Township forgive the remainder of the $2518.45 bill and work with the OAS to determine the cause of the improbable meter reading. So we want to thank you for considering our request.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Kimberley. right, for the presentation. I will turn to council for questions. Anyone on council wish to have any further information? And I'm seeing none. Okay. And I will say, Ms. Kimberley, I appreciate that you have worked with our utilities staff to attempt to resolve this puzzling situation. And I can't agree that the Ag Society has been very beneficial to the township over the years. Council, we have a presentation, and what would you like to do with it? I'll go to the deputy.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to receive the delegation with thanks and request staff to determine the one-time unusual amount of this invoice, and that the township provide relief of that amount, and that staff continue to work with the Agricultural Society to determine the cause of this anomaly, if it can be determined, even up to checking the water meter and replacing if needed.
Does the clerk have clarity on that motion?
Yes, we can. Yes, we will.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy. Do I have a seconder? I'll go to Councillor Buderick. Thank you. Deputy, would you like to make comment?
Yes, thank you. I just, first off, I appreciate the fact that the township staff and the Agriculture Society have worked together so well, trying to determine what did happen with nothing solid. I believe that this, with the Agricultural Society, as you say, they've been a great partner for the community and for the township. They're open to all community events, and they're very open to, if there's a community event or something is needed that's going to benefit the community. In the past, they've even relaxed their fee schedule to make sure that it is taken care of. So I'd like to see it continue. They've also, as was mentioned, they're going on 2 years with no income, even though they may not be out of money. I think that this is a great way that we can assist them to make sure that they are able to weather the rest of this closure and be able to be here when we need them. And again, I thank staff for working with them as well to make sure that it got to this point to be able to be a delegation.
Thank you. Seconder, do you have comment?
Just quickly, I just would love the staff report as requested by the deputy, just to see what might have triggered a one-time issue, because this may come up elsewhere in the municipality. And if we can get ahead of it, that would be a great thing.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Anyone? I'm seeing no further comment. Deputy, do you want final? No.
I think I was long-winded enough. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Kimberley and Mr. Field, for facilitating the technology.
Thank you very much for your help with this.
And thank you. And you have a good evening. Moving forward to item 9.2, we have a presentation from, I believe it's Amy Gagne from FoodCycler Science. To the clerk, do we have Ms. Gagne?
It will be Alex Heyman. I believe that's doing the delegation, Your Worship.
Okay. Mr. Heyman, welcome, sir.
Hello, Mayor and Council.
For us?
I do have a presentation. Are you able to see it?
Council, can we see that presentation? I'm seeing nods. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so hello, my name is Alex Heyman. I'm dialing in today from Ottawa. I'm here today to talk about food waste and how our company is piloting new technology with 19 municipalities around Canada, mostly in Ontario, and how we'd be interested in exploring a potential partnership with Loyalist Township. We have connected with Mayor Bressie in the past at an FCM event and have been in contact with staff over the past year regarding several informal discussions of a pilot program. And so we'd like to share more information with Council tonight. And our request at the end of this presentation will be that Council asks staff to explore this further. So FoodCycle Science, as I mentioned, we're based out of Ottawa, and our company is focused on using technology to solve the problem of food waste. Recently, we've started partnering with many municipalities in Canada to offer a solution for food waste diversion. In the Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry area, we're now working with 3 municipalities there, which are South Stormont, South Dundas, and South Glengarry. And those would be interesting references because they're fairly close to Loyalist. In the direct-to-consumer space, we work with brands including Vitamix, Breville, and Sage, and we also have a line of commercial FoodCycler machines. As you know, food waste is a big problem today, and anywhere from 25 to 50% of the waste our houses produce is organic waste. Food waste is very heavy, and we spend a lot of money on food that is ultimately wasted. It's a significant problem for greenhouse gas emissions because once food waste reaches the landfill, it decomposes anaerobically and releases harmful methane gases. Methane was a big discussion at the recent COP26 conference, so it's a very interesting topic right now. Municipalities spend a lot of money on landfills and waste management, and as our landfills continue to fill up, those costs will only continue to rise, and thus it'd be a good idea to investigate all methods available for diversion. There's the environmental side, again, the methane gas being produced. And finally, there's the community aspect that having food waste in the garbage attracts animals, creates odors. And if we can get that out of the garbage and diverted, you got less animals, you have less waste, you may even not have to collect the garbage as often. A lot of people say to us, haven't we solved this already? Can't we just get green bins like a city like Kingston has? Well, yes, and a lot of communities are considering solutions such as green bins. However, they tend to work best in large cities with economies of scale, and residents don't always like them. For example, Sudbury recently implemented a green bin program and the participation rate was very, very low. Contamination is an issue. There's more trucks on the road for doing collection, which leads to safety concerns. And ultimately, it's not something that everybody buys into. It can work, but it's expensive and not everybody likes it. There's backyard composting, which is great. And I'd like to thank everybody who is backyard composting. Please continue to do so. It's a great option, but again, it's not for everybody. And many of those that backyard compost aren't doing it during the winter. And lastly, there's the landfill, but that's not a great solution for a number of reasons. So what we've done at FoodCycler is we've created a countertop appliance about the size of a bread machine. And the way it works is you put your food waste into the bucket, you put the bucket into the machine, and a few hours later, your food waste has been reduced in weight and volume by 90%, leaving you with a dry, sterile, and odorless soil amendment that many folks use for gardening, landscaping. It can be composted. We're exploring pelletizing it into home heating fuel. There's a lot of applications for this material, but overall, it's a very simple, clean, and easy process. And we're learning in all our pilot programs with municipalities in Canada that residents like it because it's super easy. In terms of the environmental impact, we're able to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions from food waste by upwards of 95% versus sending it to landfill, which is quite significant. We're able to offer considerable cost savings versus sending our food waste to a municipal landfill or to private sector disposal. And lastly, we're helping municipalities comply with environmental regulations that are coming in the next few years. The Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks has listed a food waste policy statement that is asking more municipalities to have diversion systems for food waste in place over the next few years. And we hear from residents that they're interested in being part of the solution, and they want their local government to come to them with solutions to help address this challenge. Quick touch on a pilot project. This is one of our older ones in the city of Nelson in BC. With 250 households, we were able to divert 25 tons of food waste over a 3-month period. And diversion continues to this day. Residents really liked it, 4.5 at a 5-star rating, with less than 1% saying they would not recommend it to others. Lots of learnings from this pilot program as well that we've taken and adopted into our programs. And I think the number of municipalities buying into this is evidence of that success. Recently, from the federal government, we were awarded a grant through the Impact Canada Food Waste Reduction Challenge. It's a multi-stage project. And with these grants, we're able to help offset the cost of pilot programs to municipalities that want to try out this technology. And if we're successful in future stages of the challenge, there will be funding to help scale up these projects. So currently we're in stage 1, and there's 2 more stages to this program. Within our pilot program, we have a 12-week program where residents purchase a FoodCycler from the municipality at a subsidized rate, use the FoodCycler for 12 weeks, and then report their usage and fill out a survey at the end. It's a very quick process that allows the municipality to get data very quickly and with minimal staff time required. For municipalities that started the program in August, we're now reporting final data back to them and doing the final reports. So it's a very quick process to get some good data about food waste generation in the community. In terms of pilot size, typically we recommend starting about 100 households, and that comes with a cost to the municipality of about $10,000. And the way the pricing breaks down is in the chart on the right. So the device has a $500 retail price. Our company plus the federal grant cuts that in half. We then look for the municipality to subsidize $100, which leaves the resident to cover $150 to participate in the pilot program. That seems to be the sweet spot between keeping it accessible to as many people as possible, but not placing an undue burden on taxpayers to subsidize this. We found it's worked very well with all of the other municipalities we work with now. So thank you very much for your time and considering this idea. Our request would be that council refer this to staff for further consideration, and I welcome any questions from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Council, do we have questions with regard to the presentation? I'll go to the deputy.
Thank you. Through you, I know you presented it tonight as a municipal incentive. Are these available to anyone if they wanted one outside of this program? If just a resident wanted to buy one at full price?
They can be purchased through our partner in the direct-to-consumer market, which is Vitamix, just through vitamix.com. However, by working with municipalities, we're able to achieve significant economies of scale and bring the costs down to residents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have comment or question? Councillor Gordon, go ahead.
That $100 cost to the homeowner is based on, was it 2,500 units or no, how many families?
So that was based on 100 households participating and the municipality subsidizing $100 per household.
So if we get into serious numbers where we've got roughly 7,500 households, I think, if we get into the 4,000 and 5,000 numbers, like, does the cost go down even more? Or
so there's certainly
around $100.
I'd say there's certainly further economies of scale that could be achieved. What we found with the pilot programs is we keep the size very low to test the concept directly in the community. And if there is success, we'd work with you to find grants that could fund the expansion. There's a lot of money out there right now, particularly from the federal government through the Green Municipal Fund that supports this. And as several of our communities are wrapping up pilots with positive results, that's the angle we're taking to fund the expansion, so that hopefully the cost to a resident to participate would eventually be zero and no out-of-pocket cost, just like many would expect with a green bin type program.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Parks, go ahead.
Hear you, Mr. Mayor. To the presenter, just looking, when you run the program, how long does the program normally run for? Like the pilot program is, I'm sorry if I missed that.
We recommend a 12-week pilot program, and that's what we've done in the past, though we're certainly open to exploring a longer or shorter program based on what staff would recommend for your community.
Okay, thank you. Can I follow up?
Go ahead.
To the director, I believe we're in the process of looking at all the options at this point, and I just sort of wondered what that timeline was for looking at alternatives to the garbage and recycling that's coming up.
Ms. McFarland, are you able to comment? There we are.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We are, as Mr. Heyman spoke, we have been in contact over the last year with this company. We do have staff that are working to bring back the results of the actual surveys that were done and some different options for us. And when we were meeting today, we have to look at those contracts, and probably in the summer, we'll be looking at redoing the waste collection contracts, and at that time, or doing the tenders, and at that time we will hope to have been able to do some more public consultation and come back with some different options.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'm seeing no further questions. Mr. Hammond has posited a recommendation, if you will, that we authorize staff to continue working with the organization to explore this pilot or the options around this. Council, would you like to make a motion? I'll go to Councillor Parks.
So moved.
So moved. Does the clerk have clarity? Yes?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you. And I believe I saw Councillor Buderick's hand for seconding. Thank you. Mover, you have comment?
No.
Seconder comment? No. Anyone else have comment on this? Seeing no further comment, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Heyman.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council.
Which brings us to the end of delegations and presentations. We move to item 10, adoption of minutes, confirmation of the minutes of the 57th session of council from November the 8th. Are there any noted errors or omissions in these minutes? I'm seeing none. Can I get a motion to approve? Councillor Gordon, seconded by the deputy. Any comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Councillor Tennant, were you opposed to that? Sorry, I'm just not trying to highlight. I'm just, I think there might be a delay in the internet.
There is a delay, Your Worship, but I was in favor.
Thank you. And moving forward to the Office of the Chief Administrator. And Mr. Silver is here. We have a report before us, SR 1902, the acceptance of the gifted property and purchase. Mr. Silver, do you have anything to highlight or add to this report?
I don't have anything to add, Your Worship.
And thank you. Council, do we have any questions with regard to this? I'm seeing no questions. We have a recommendation in the report to accept the gift, to agree to purchase, and the staff be directed to begin the public consultation. And that's the recommendation. Do we have anyone wishing to make a motion? Councillor Townend, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move to receive the report and adopt recommendations 1 through 3.
2 and 3, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gordon, thank you. Any comment from the mover?
Only to thank the CAO for the report, and that Islanders are excited to be engaged on and consulted on what will happen with both of those properties.
Thank you. Seconder, do you have comment? Anyone else have comment? Seeing no further comments, I will add our expression of thanks to the Gowans for the donation of the property. It is greatly appreciated. They are great community members. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to item 13, Business Services Treasurer Department. 13.1 is the 2022 water sewer user rates. We have a report before us, and we have Mr. Dickey before us. Mr. Dickey, do you have anything you'd like to highlight in this report or add to it?
Good evening. Nothing to add to it, Mr. Mayor, through you. We do have the Deputy Treasurer and Senior Financial Analyst available who did most of the analysis on the rates. So there is a choice or a couple of options for council in the motion, but we'll get to receive any questions.
Thank you. Council, do we have questions for either the treasurer or the deputy or the senior analyst? I'm seeing no questions. Again, as the treasurer highlighted, we do have some options with the recommendations. And if there's no questions, I will look to council to make a motion to identify an option. Councillor Buderick, go ahead.
These are very welcoming options, and since they obviously make financial sense, or they wouldn't be put before us, I would love to go with option B, as that is one of the two hot topic buttons I hear the most from my constituents. That our water rates are crazy in comparison to other municipalities, and like I said, it wouldn't be an option if it wasn't in front of us, and I'd like to take an opportunity to run with it. Thank you.
So your motion is to receive the report and adopt recommendation B, no change in rates.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Parks, thank you. Mover, any further comment? No?
Like the deputy said earlier, I was long-winded enough in the first time around. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parks, you're the seconder. Would you like to make comment?
I just wanted to reiterate what Councillor Broderick has said. Our rates are extremely expensive, so it's nice to see that we have this option.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to make comment? I'm seeing no further comments. Oh, sorry, Deputy, go ahead.
Thank you. The one thing that I want to point out, and which causes me concern, is that with this, the income has to come from somewhere. So in the report, it says that there'll be a reduction in capital, which means the maintenance and upkeep and advancements in our systems will lag behind if this option goes through.
Thank you. And any other comments? And I'm seeing no comments, no further comments. Right. Back to the mover? No?
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate the fact that I'm only bringing this forward because it was an option for us, and I agree with the deputy on what he's saying. However, it wouldn't be brought to us if it wasn't possible, is all I'm trying to say. That's why it was going with option B, but that is it.
Okay. thank you. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. And Councillor Gordon, I can't see you right now. Oh, your hand is up. Okay, thank you. Right. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion is carried. Right. We move forward to item 13.2, 2022 escalation of frontage fees. And we have the treasurer with us. Right. Do you have anything to add or highlight in this report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, nothing at this time.
It's time. Council, do we have any questions? Seeing no questions, I'll look for a motion. Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation.
To receive and adopt. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gordon seconds. Thank you. Deputy, any comment? Seconder, any comment? Anyone else have comment on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to item 13.3, operating status as at September 30th, year-end projections and capital works in progress. Again, Mr. Dickey is here. Okay. Do you have anything to highlight within this report, sir?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We are projecting a bit of a surplus again this year. So just really mainly to highlight, it's in the report, but I think there have been, with the pandemic and delay in getting hiring going over the last couple of years, we have been slow at filling some of the positions and replacing positions. So that has created the bulk of the kind of the projected surplus for this year. But just for council's awareness, we have been closing that gap, and I think by the end of this year, virtually all those positions will be filled. So we'll be that gap shouldn't be there next year. We are catching up with the hiring that's needed to be done over the last couple of years, so that will help with that going forward.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions with regards to this? Deputy, go ahead.
Just wanted to confirm, I believe if I read it correctly, there's going to be some of the losses that are going to be reviewed for whether it can be funded through the Reopening Ontario funding. Am I correct that at the end of the year, things like the fees, the lost fees, whether it's ferry, transit, recreation, they'll all be reviewed for potential funding from the other levels of government?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah. So we do still have that. We've received funding that we're holding on to. So we will be required to report back at the end of the year with kind of the results, the extra costs, the lost revenue according to because of the pandemic. The one thing we're not sure, because we have surpluses in other areas, the way the funding has appeared to work so far is if you've offset some of your extra costs through other savings, we're not sure how much of that funding will be eligible to receive. Last year we were able to take some of the money in to offset ferry fees in 2020. So we will look at that again. So that money is available to us if we need it. We're just at this point, until we do the year-end filing, we're not sure exactly how much of it we'll be eligible for, but it is there available for us if we need it.
Thank you.
Any other questions with regard to this report? I'm seeing no further questions. Okay. Do I have a motion? Anyone? Oh, Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation.
Motion to receive and adopt. Do I have a seconder? And Councillor Townend? Yes, okay. Thank you. Saw it very quickly. Right. Any comments? Mover, seconder? No. Anyone else have comment? Seeing no comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Right. Move forward to 13.4, 2022 escalation of impost growth fees. And you're really providing us with a lot of reports tonight, Mr. Dickey. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Through you, nothing in addition to what's in the report, just if anyone has questions.
Thank you. Council, do we have questions? Seeing none. And do I have a motion? Councillor Townend, so moved. Moving the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Deputy, thank you. Any comments from the mover and seconder? Any comments from anyone else? I'm seeing none. I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And we move to the American Scholarship Fund 2021 annual report. We have a recommendation. Do I have any, Mr. Dickey, do you have anything to add to it at this time?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, nothing. Unfortunately, there haven't been a lot of donations this year, and of course, our investment income rate is at historic lows, so we don't have as much to distribute. Unfortunately, it is a nice program. It's great for students to be able to get a little bit of extra money. So it's unfortunately not a lot this year, but we are proposing to distribute as per the intent of the trust. So.
Absolutely, thank you. Any questions? Seeing no questions, I'll look for a motion. Councillor Townend, so moved, the recommendation. And Councillor Budrich seconds. Thank you. Mover and seconder have comment. And Councillor Townend? Did you have go ahead?
Yeah, just my congratulations to all those recipients.
And excellent, thank you. Anyone else have comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to the Community and Customer Services Department. Item 14.1, the Bath Gardening Club request to waive fees. I see that Ms. McFarland is coming on screen. We have a report before us. Ms. McFarland, do you have anything to highlight or to add in this report?
Nothing further, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions? I'm seeing no questions. We do have a recommendation, including two options, or not two options, but 2 points. Council, what would you like to do with the recommendation? Deputy?
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation.
Motion to receive and adopt. Do I have a seconder? Councilor Parks, thank you. Any comments from the mover or seconder? No, no. Anyone else? Seeing none. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And item 14.2, the Interesting Years Seniors Club request to adjust fees. More COVID challenges. Ms. McFarland, do you have anything to add or to highlight in this report?
Nothing further, Your Worship.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question about this report? I'm seeing no questions. Again, we have a recommendation before us. Council, what would you like to do with it? And did I see your hand, Councillor Budrich? Thank you. You so moved. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Gordon, thank you. Mover comment, seconder comment? Nothing, nothing. Anyone else have comment? I'm seeing none. And then I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to item 14.3, a report regarding the Bath Parks Garage. And Ms. McFarland, do you have anything to comment on in this report?
The only thing, Your Worship, that I'd like to point out is that unfortunately through some staff turnover, this issue wasn't addressed. And when our new Parks and Facilities manager started, she worked to address it and meet with the resident and listened to the concerns and has tried to change some operating practices to see if we could alleviate the some of the concerns that were expressed. So I'm just apologizing for it being so long coming back to council.
Thank you very much. Council, do we have any questions? Councillor Parks, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director. Has the resident provided any feedback since you've made some of those amendments or changes to some of the processes or the operation? Just wondered if there'd been any feedback.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not to my knowledge. They have not provided feedback.
Okay. Anyone else have a question? I don't think so. Can I get a motion, please? Councillor Parks, go ahead.
Sorry, just to, where are you gonna find it? To receive it and remain status quo.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Buderick, thank you. Any comments from the mover or seconder? Anyone else? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. McFarland.
Thank you.
We move to Economic Growth and Community Development Services Department. Item 16.1 is a CRCA LiDAR project partnership. And, oh, to the clerk.
You missed the corporate services, Your Worship.
Oh, my apologies. I skipped over. That happens to be the clerk's own item. So at item 15.1, before we get to Ms. Merritt, the Pound Services Agreement renewal. Okay. We have the report before us. Madam Clerk, do you have anything to highlight or to add to this report?
It's just, we did a pilot project on it last year, Your Worship. They've had some changes in Greater Napanee, but we have reached out and we're giving it another go for this year. We haven't heard any negative from it, so I think it's a win-win partnership with Greater Napanee on this.
Thank you. Council, do we have comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Can I get a motion, please? Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation.
So moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Buderick, thank you. Any comments from the mover and seconder? No. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Now we can come to Economic Growth and Community Development Services. Ms. Merritt, we have the CRCA LiDAR project partnership report before us. Do you have anything to add to it?
Through you, Your Worship. Actually, I'd like to clarify. I typically write, like not just the acronym, but what it actually means. So I've been asked that question today. So LiDAR basically stands for light detection and ranging process. So that's a technology that gives us really high resolution models of ground elevation. So we do have some LiDAR information for the township, but some of it is outdated. The technology is a little bit better now. And also it's going to help us fill some gaps in our data. So now that I've said that, actually, I need to make a small update. I need to note that in the attached agreement, in the attached bylaw, so it's page 640 of your agenda. In item 3.2, it gives the installment has to be paid by December 1st, 2021. Staff actually requested CRCA to amend their agreement to say March 31st, 2022, to give us an opportunity to budget for it in 2022 if council supports this partnership with CRCA. So that's a very small change. I have the updated bylaw, the updated agreement for the clerk. I will send over, but if you're agreeing to the change, we'll just send the revised bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Council, do we have any questions for Ms. Merritt? Okay. Doesn't look like it. We all understood LiDAR. Right. So we have a recommendation to enter into an agreement with the CRCA with a modification to the agreement as presented, changing the date. Do I have a mover for that, or however you'd like to make a motion? Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation with the bylaw as amended.
Thank you. Councillor Buderick, you're seconding. Thank you. Any comment from the mover and seconder? No. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Item 16.2, the development approval process project status. We have a report before us. I do note that the recommendation has an or, but I will go to the director. Anything to highlight?
No, there's nothing to highlight, Your Worship.
And thank you. Council. And do we have any comments or questions with regards to this report? Seeing none. Okay. Does anyone want to make the motion? Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation, item 2.
Item 2, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Oh, Councillor Gordon, thank you. All right. Mover comment?
Just with the with the partnering with the county moving forward, I think it'd be really good for us to finish that process. Then we'll be able to move forward if we do need additional staffing or whatever is required or whatever scope of work for additional staff or our current staff. That can all be determined once we have a good process in place.
Thank you. Seconder comment? No? Anyone else have comment? I'm seeing none. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We go to 16.3, request for road closing. And not going to get into the details there. We have the report before us. And we have Ms. Merritt. Do you have comment to make?
No further comment to make, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council, do we have questions? Councillor Buderick, go ahead. Councillor Buderick, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just trying to unmute. My apologies, Your Worship. Just a quick question on the option number 3. I know it's probably further down in the report, and I get that. I read down to where it was, but I was just curious to the reasoning from staff as why option 3 would be included in the recommendations, that the one resident would not be allowed to purchase the property. Just a little more rationale than what's actually in writing. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Merritt.
So through you, Your Worship, actually, because this is a technical planning question, very good question, by the way, I'm going to defer to, I'm going to let our planning staff respond.
And I see both Ms. Furness and Mr. Casemore in the audience. Who wants to take it?
Thank you, Maddie.
Sorry, Councillor Parks, did you have comment?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'll go to Ms. Furness.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, essentially our road closing policy currently right now, which is outdated and doesn't comply with like current municipal act requirements, it does require the township to, advise any adjacent property owners to a road allowance that's going to be closed in order to make them aware. So if they are interested, then they could make potentially their own application. So in this case, we have received an application from the property owner on Bath Road. The rationale for staff not recommending that portion be sold to that property owner is because the entire area there is designated industrial in the official plan, and it's also zoned general industrial, including the residential property. So essentially, when we're reviewing the selling of township property, We are recommending it be given to the other property owner, the entire piece, and that the other land holding is also an industrial property and it's proposing industrial uses. The other property is a residential property, so it's a legal non-conforming use. Our official plan speaks to any land use that doesn't conform to land use designations in the official plan. In general, should cease to exist over time in the long term. However, in special circumstances, we can consider extending or enlarging these types of properties, specifically said to avoid unnecessary hardship. So where these have kind of typically been considered is, for example, if a well is straddling lot lines, or where we mostly see these is if someone has a legal non-conforming residential structure and they want to expand, have an accessory structure because they want a detached garage on it, then, we could entertain expanding the use that way, but typically not entertaining expanding a residential property in an industrial area due to the conflicting land uses. So that's the other thing to note as well is it wouldn't be permitted as of right. So if council did choose to want to proceed with offering that portion of the road allowance to this property owner, it would have to be contingent upon getting Committee of Adjustment approval, as a Planning Act application is required to enlarge a non-conforming use.
Does that provide your answer, Councillor Budrick?
It was a fantastic answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions with regard to this report? Seeing no further questions, do I have a mover? We have a recommendation with 4 parts. Anyone? Councillor Budrick, go ahead.
I would, with that great explanation, accept the recommendations, so 1 through 4.
Thank you. And so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gordon, thank you. And any comments from the mover and seconder? Anyone else have comment? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And we move forward. We get to anything under emergency, notices of motion or direct motion. Is there anyone on council that wishes to put forward a notice of motion or request a direct motion? I'm seeing no hands. So we come to the consent agenda. For the purpose of convenience and for expediting meetings, matters of business that are repetitive or routine in nature are included in the consent agenda. And all such matters of business contained in the consent agenda are voted on collectively. A particular matter of business may be singled out from the consent agenda for debate or for separate vote upon the request of any member of council. In the case of a separate vote, the excluded matter of business is severed from the consent agenda. Each and every matter of business contained in the consent agenda is recorded separately in the minutes of the meeting. Is there anything that any member of council wishes to extract from the consent agenda? Deputy, go ahead.
Item 23.3, the province-wide property assessment update postponement.
23.3. Anything else that anyone wishes to separate? Deputy or Councillor Gordon, Councillor Townend, sorry.
22.4, Your Worship.
22.4. Okay, anything else from anyone? I'm seeing no further extractions. Then I'll ask for a motion on the consent agenda without the extractions. I'll go to the deputy and Councillor Townend seconding. And anything further, any comments? I'll call the question on the consent agenda. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to 22.4, which is the Renewable Energy Fund Grant Review Committee applications. Councillor Townend, you asked for that to be separated.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question. to the author in the report. It says applications for the first funding period of the Renewable Energy Fund grant will be available January 3rd, 2022, and due no later than February 1st, 2022. Elsewhere in the report, it indicated that there had only been one application for the subcommittee for wards 2 and 3. And that it was going to be re-advertised. So am I to understand, based on the beginning of the application period in January, that the applications will be received and sort of essentially put on hold until that subcommittee hopefully gets members that apply? Is that the correct understanding?
To the clerk?
Through you, Your Worship. Yes. So basically, we have enough applications in for the Ward 1 subcommittee. What we'll be doing is just re-advertising for Ward 2, 3 applicants for the subcommittee. We will be still proceeding with advertising again for the community grants. We believe by the tie-in from when the applications are done, we'll be still proceeding through that with a closed session report with the applications going to council on December 13th. Hopefully we will get at least the minimum amount, if not more, for the other subcommittee that will go. My understanding would be, or the proposal would be, if we don't, we would still proceed with the committee that has enough, and then it would be a direction from council on how they want to proceed if we don't receive enough. The applications for the grant would be coming in by the end, by February 1st, so the end of January, and then they would be going to the subcommittee. They'd be in play by then to do their review and coming to council for recommendations.
Okay, Councillor Tannen?
Yes, Your Worship. I'm prepared to make a motion to.
Did anyone else have a question with regard to that report? Seeing none, Councillor Tannen, go ahead with your motion.
I move to receive for information.
Motion to receive for information. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Buderick, thank you. Any comments? Seeing none from anyone, I'll call the question on 22.4. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to 23.3. Property assessment update postponement, and the deputy asked for this to be separated. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I'm prepared to make a motion to receive and support.
Motion to receive and support. And do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gordon, thank you. Deputy, would you like to make comment?
Yeah, this is just, this is bothersome for me that it's just extended for an extra 2 years with really no explanation that the property assessments aren't going to be updated. It's going to make it that we're going to be working on valuations that are 8 years old, which I realize as far as us setting a budget, we base our budgets on what we're provided with. So that's all we can work with, and that's defendable. But any potential impacts to residents is going to be compounded by the extended period of time. I don't want to get back to the point where we're basically working with mill rates. I'd like to stay current and be able to defend our actions by saying that we are dealing with current assessment values provincially as provided by the province. And right now, by the end of 8 years, that statement isn't really going to be able to be made anymore. So if there's properties that have escalated in price, and when it finally is valuated, there's going to be some residents that are going to be very unhappy. And I'd like to see it taken care of before then.
Thank you. Seconder, do you have comment? No? Anyone else have comment? Seeing no further comment, the motion is to receive and support. I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And thank you both for pulling those out. We move forward to new business updates from members appointed to county council committees and other local boards. Is there anything that any member of council wishes to bring forward from one of their appointed board committees? Deputy, go ahead.
If I may, I attended this, I actually attended on behalf of the county, but I represent on the county from the township. So I'm going to bring it here as well because it relates to our municipality. I did a tour of the Lafarge plant with some of the Lafarge representatives from the committee. That we also have Councillor Parks sits on the committee as well. And it was really impressive to see the amount of energy, the money that's gone into that facility, and for the betterment of our residents, but also for the betterment of the environment. Some of the things that they've brought into place, they're making use of material that would otherwise be in landfill, and making it a viable fuel option, and also using ammonia to be able to basically reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And instead of putting out gases, you're basically putting out moisture. And to see the technology in place, it's pretty, for me with my background in engineering, I mean, I love it. That's my thing, is to try and figure out how this stuff works and be able to look at it that way. So it's not completed yet. It's going to be going on for at least one more year because the remainder has to be done during shutdown. But they've put millions and millions of dollars into this, and it's better for everyone when it's the environment, and it's good for our township when it helps our residents.
Thank you for bringing that forward. Is there anything else anyone wishes to bring forward from their committees or local boards? Seeing none. And we move to members' privilege. Is there anything that we would like to bring forward under members' privilege? Council? None? Okay, then we move to the confirmatory bylaw. Okay. Anyone wish to make that motion? I'll take Councillor Buderick and the deputy. Any comment? Call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay. Upcoming meeting dates. On December the 6th, we are scheduled for Committee of the Adjustment and Committee of the Whole Budget. December the 9th, we will have another Committee of the Whole Budget for a council meeting on December the 13th. Are there any other meetings to make note of? I see none. And we will call, then I will call for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Buderick, so moved. Councillor Townend seconds. Any comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We are adjourned, and we did get it in before 10 o'clock. We didn't have to make that special motion. Have a great evening, folks. I thank you all for sticking with it. And to our audience, we appreciate your attendance as well. And have a great evening and the rest of your week.